All right, let's talk about cognitive services. Here is the history of Microsoft doing machine learning and AI stuff. While I was at Microsoft in lots of meetings with RDs, we heard about all this cool stuff coming for many years. A lot of this stuff came out of Microsoft Research, and the guys behind this are super smart, and there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Eventually, in 2016, they announced that they had some examples of this to show off. And they used machine learning with Twitter. They made an AI chatterbot and became racist. And her name was Tay. She didn't actually even last 24 hours. She started saying some pretty bad stuff. In fact, when I started Googling for this, the stuff she said was pretty bad, okay? Really bad. She was the average of the internet. And so here's some tame ones. Have you read Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's book? Yeah, I've read it. What'd you think of it? Well, I kind of liked it, all right? Is Ricky Gervais an atheist? Ricky Gervais learnt totalitarianism from Adolf Hitler, the inventor of atheism. Okay, so she was getting, I don't know where she's getting all her information from, but she was getting it. And you know, in America, they are very sensitive with the N-word. She had no trouble saying the N-word. Basically, you could make her, you could just tweet, you know, swear words. And obviously, it wouldn't take much effort to remove that out of it, but the marketing department that made this didn't factor in that testing. So I did a Google because I wanted to know what the average of the internet was. And I don't know if you know, but our average is in a bell curve. So most of us just sit in this bell curve. Now, obviously, you know, Twitter users are down there, here, with the YouTube commenters. And that's why she didn't pan out too well. So it's very important that you guys do unit testing, integration testing, performance testing, usability testing, penetration testing, ALI testing. All right, who already does all this type of testing? No one does it all. All right, that's good, because I invented ALI testing, okay? I call it artificial low intelligence testing, all right? So you can imagine probably what's going on here. The Microsoft Research guys who did all this are super diligent, been working hard for years, and then a marketing department does this and it crashes and burns, and they must have felt terrible. And it wouldn't, like, even any of us, even if we can't code, we can put if statements that if the word is F-U-C-K, don't retweet it. You know, it's not super hard you know, stuff to work out. And so and I think there's a lesson in that for us, even if we are going to use all these cool cognitive services and stuff, and we'll talk about the amount of stuff you can do. When you walked into our office this morning and there was Sophie, the big screen up, as you walked up, she can recognize who you are, and that's just, you know, our guys just wrote that by just calling a Cognitive Services Face API, and it can recognize who you are based on a database of pictures. And it tells each employee stuff about them each morning. In this case, we can make our logic app quite smart by you know, detecting the sentiment, whether the person tweeting is really happy or really angry. And if they're super angry, we could make that escalated to someone else, you know, in the business or whatever you do. All right, so here is the scenario. We have Jason, a great .NET developer, who has written some logic apps that are putting every tweet into a ticketing system so every tweet gets answered. There's too many tweets now and too many tickets, and we've got some very busy marketing people trying to, you know, retweet them if they're happy. You know, if someone says, your product is amazing, you retweet it. If they say, your product is terrible, I've got a problem, you say, look, we want to help you. Can you email support and we'll fix this? And we could make our stuff smarter by using cognitive services. We could detect the sentiment, work out if they're happy or sad. If they're happy, we'll auto retweet it. If they're unhappy, we'll create a ticket in Zendesk. Now, since 90% of our customers are happy, we will have much less tickets in our Zendesk support system. And this is an example of what I just told you about, which is Sophie, the screen that you saw as you walked in. When it recognises Yuli here, it says what his calendar is and what his to-do list is. And it's going to be raining in 3 days up the top right here, and your next holiday is in 27 days. All right, stuff like that, whatever you want. It's not very hard to put this together if you're using Cognitive Services. When you look at this, you can see that our developers have used this Face API. There's plenty of them. And I think as, if you are getting into Cognitive Services, one of the responsibilities is to look at how many there are and see what you could use. We can have Sophie speak to us, and you can use the speech API. You can use linguistic analysis. We will now, in a second, use the text analysis and show how we can call that. We could use the knowledge analysis with Q&As and we can use that with bots. Search stuff, labs, there's lots and lots of cool stuff here. We did a system, in Australia there's a lot of those green toll trucks that go around the place, and they travel around the country with big trailers. And we have, there's a GPS that's been put in there, and that runs our software, and every toll truck is tracked, and you can see where all the toll trucks are going. And I didn't know this before we did this, but when a truck goes from Melbourne to Sydney, it doesn't actually drive all the way. They stop halfway, switch with another driver, switch trailers, and go back the other way and go back home. So. But the hardest thing of writing that application for our devs, and we took there was a long time writing that, was not using the Google Maps API. It was all the routing algorithms to get them to match and stop at a certain place and switch trailers and stuff like that. If we did that today, we could use Project Johannesburg potentially. That'd be a much better way, and our code would be much skinnier. And there's obviously a lot of these type of solutions out there you can call, and this is just using cool services. So let's do a demo, Will.
All right, so we're going to extend our logic app from before, but I think we can just go through the screens of that, because it's a bit more of what we did before.
Okay, all right, cool. All right. So we would go in, create a resource, just choose Text and Analytics API, enter some details, and press Create. So this is how we do it. We press Create on the left-hand side, and we type in here, Text Analytics, if you know what it is. If you don't know what it is, you come down here and click this and say, what have you got in here? Well, there's the Face API. Oh, that's the one we want. We want the Text Analytics. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to automatically translate from English to Chinese when you're dealing it, or Chinese to English, you could use the Translate API. So we'll just choose the we'll choose the Text Analytics API. Enter some details here, give it a name, choose Australia East, Sydney. Choose a pricing tier. Which pricing tier should we use? Will?
Free. Always use free.
F for 0, all right.
Yeah.
So now
5,000 transactions for 30 days. That's quite a lot of free transactions. So 5,000 tickets a month per company. That's a pretty good free offering. Very generous. So
now we'll use an existing resource group, press Create. It'll spin around here pretty quickly, and then it'll say tick. And at this point in time, we need to do two things. Mm-hmm. We will grab our keys, so that key, because obviously you need the key to be able to call this API, and we'll copy this endpoint. See the API to call. So that's our API, and that is our key to use it. So let's grab that and grab that, mm-hmm. and we are good to go. So I have a question. Why is there two keys there?
Public and private.
Public and private, kind of. What if you get compromised? Like an idiot was to put up a screenshot in a PowerPoint presentation and I forgot to hide the key. Now I've got it compromised and I need to switch it, but I want to keep it alive while I switch it. All right. So I'm going to fly through updating this.
Yes, let's go through. So I can walk you through this one.
Sure. Yeah.
No worries. So we need to specify the key and the URL from our text analytics service that we just created. and then we will build up our logic app to detect the sentiment being less than 0.3 or greater than 0.7 to determine whether the sentiment is positive or negative. Otherwise, it's neutral. And if it is positive, we want to actually repost a tweet to spread the good news about our company. If it's neutral, we just want to ignore it. And if it's negative, we actually want to lodge a Zendesk ticket. So here's our logic app from before. We can now just add in a new step or a new action in the middle and search for the text analytics connector. And we select it. We say that we want to actually detect sentiment, but there are other key phrases or the actual language that we can detect. So we want to type in our connection name and just call it text analytics, but this could be anything that you like to describe what you're trying to detect. We need to fill in our account key and our site URL for our text analytics service. And then we just click create. Oh yes, and we just need to say, now we want to add the text that we want to analyze, and that'll be our tweet text. So we just scroll down the list and select tweet text. Now the next step is we need to add a condition to determine if it's positive or negative. The result that we get back from the text analytics ranges between 0 and 1. So that is how, if it's less than 0.3, it's a low sentiment or negative sentiment. So here the UI explains to us the score that we get back from text analytics, a decimal number between 0 and 1 denoting the sentiment of the document. The score above 0.7 usually refers to a positive document which has a score, while a score below 0.3 normally has a negative connotation. Mid-values refer to neutral text. All right, so we go through this visual programming step where we select the score is greater than 0.7, and we want to then add the action of tweet, but there's no actual retweet option. It's sort of for a good reason, because if you retweet a tweet, it sort of gets out of control and recursively tweets itself. So that's, I think, a reason why it's not in here. So we'll go for an alternative approach and select Microsoft Teams. So we can actually now post a message to Microsoft Teams when we have some positive feedback, so our staff can see what happened. So I'll go back one step, sorry. So once we've signed into Microsoft Teams, that step is done. And now all we need to do for the negative tweets is to drag in our previously created item for Zendesk into the false condition. And now we can save our app. And that's done. So now, if any tweets come in that are negative, they would show up in Zendesk here. But because we're only detecting the really bad ones, we have a very small number of tweets in here, instead of every single tweet from before. Cool. That's done.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. So we have now got AI in our Logic app. If you've done this and called a cognitive service, you can now put AI on your LinkedIn profile. Okay? You can use me as a reference. Nobody ever checks them. All right. So you can reduce your tickets by 90%. So we've really reduced them now. The text analytics is very good at detecting sentiment. You'd be surprised. You can look at every single message and see what number you get. And obviously, the gold is in knowing what all the cognitive services do and keeping abreast of that, because if you can do that, you're really a proper, you're doing architecture work, you're saving a lot of code from being written, and it's really valuable. So be very careful about sarcasm. I can just imagine Josh seeing a tweet and going, Adam, SSW's website is down, great. And then our bot automatically retweets that, So, that's kind of the ALI testing I was just talking about that's essential. I do want to tell you something about Sophie as you walk in with that API. We had a lot of, we got it up and running real fast, and then we had a lot of small challenges. There was issues with hardware selection, and there's a type of, we start with Connect camera, and then there's RealSense cameras and stuff. We had some issues with cost implementation. For example, we were calling it too many times, and then in addition, someone put up a big banner of Adam Stevenson on the side wall, and it started just going crazy, detecting that non-stop and seeing it's a bill of a lot of money, and we didn't notice. And he talks all about this and how he learnt what he learnt. His name's JK, he's from Slovenia, and he's awesome geek. He really understands this stuff, and it's a nice little presentation. It's for free, it's on SSW TV. It's quite good. All right, and there's also the Sophie product you can have a look at, which is sswsophie.com. So the verdict for Cognitive Services is the Now I Can Do AI Award. And Donald Trump tweeted, "Sorry losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest and you all know it. Please don't feel so stupid or insecure, it's not your fault." Okay? That is not a modified tweet. That is him. Thank you.